Hi, Pat. How are you?
Good, Blythe. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for
Nice to see
joining.
you.
Yeah, it's nice to see faces, isn't it?
Yeah, and without mask on.
Yes, exactly. I know I saw a meme that said something about your I'm looking at all these people smiling and then I realize I have a mask on as I'm walking through the grocery store. So, well, I wanted to welcome you today and say thank you so much. And just as a little introduction and about you, and I'm sure there's lots more about you, but Pat, you are one of our wonderful volunteers at Care House of Oakland County, and we appreciate everything you do. You're also a retired teacher, and I know the two of us have talked a few times about what's happening with distance learning now with schools and how we're coping. Myself as a parent, how I'm coping and thinking about all of the stressors that this virus has put on us as a household and has also put on teachers that are concerned for their students and want to make sure they're in an ideal learning environment and or as ideal as possible during this time. So we thought we would chat for a few minutes today and talk about some of the things that we can do and that we could provide to parents and to teachers about the things they can do to keep the children in our community safe.
Happy to do so.
Thank you so much. Thanks. So with that, we'll dig right in. And if you have any questions for me too, that's great. But I know that I have a few for you. So with children home all of the time now and kind of looking at how do we keep our kids on a schedule, how do we deal with those stressors, many are in dangerous situations. We know as an abuse organization that 1 in 10 children are sexually abused before they turn 18. And we want to make sure that we can provide that information to parents and teachers about what they can do if they suspect that's going on. So other kids may be anxious and really lonely right now. So what would you say for teachers who are in contact with their students via Zoom, via phone or email? What signs should they look for if, for abuse or looking for that in an environment where you're only seeing kids just once in a while, as opposed to every day for several hours?
Right. It's difficult, like, to judge children's emotional status when you're not seeing them face to face. However, children, just like other people, give clues as to their well being through their voice and facial expressions as well. The biggest clue for a teacher would be a change in attitude or mood from what
Mhm.
you have come to expect from that child. Teachers are great at picking up these clues at school, but it's much harder when you aren't personally interacting with the child.
Yeah.
It's important for teachers to have one-on-one interaction via telephone with their students at some time, at least during the quarantine. School districts do not all require this of their staffs, but teachers who really care about their students will make that effort.
And most teachers do really care about their students. And it's amazing to me, all of the work that my kids' teachers are doing each and every day to try and make this new way of learning as effective as possible.
True,
Um,
true.
why do you think that teachers should think about, I know, again, this is something we talked about. Why do you think that for teachers, it's so important to think about receiving mandated reporter training? Um, we have it online available while they're out of school.
In fact, I was going to ask you that very question because it is essential for teachers to stay up on that mandated training for reporting abuse.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't been using it, it's very easy to forget how to go about it.
Yeah.
So if you haven't taken a refresher class in a while, I would suggest doing it online. That's what I would do if I was teaching at this point.
Right. And we have that, again, I know we talked about it. We have that available on our website on carehouse.org under prevention. and then online mandated reporter training. So it's really easy to find. It takes about 20 minutes to do. We as a team at Care House do it regularly, even though we are constantly utilizing the protocol and know and understand it quite well. It's always good to refresh yourself, and it's really easy. So again, we have an online training. It's a webinar, interactive, has you read some scenarios and answer some questions. And the cool thing too is that you can get a certificate as well, and so you can share that as part of your continuing education credits and mandates from the school as well.
That's great, Blythe. I'm glad to hear the Care House has stepped up again, as usual.
Yeah, and although we look at and help children primarily in Oakland County, the nice thing about the online and mandated reporter training is it's good for the entire state of Michigan. So we have people all of the time accessing our website to get that information and take the training. So it's open to everyone and free of charge.
Super.
Yeah. One of the things too that we talked about, and I'm sure that you had during the course of your time teaching for 40 years, right?
36.
36, 40, we'll say 40, it's okay.
Sounds better.
Is that you had to report, I'm sure, in several instances, suspected abuse. And you know that there is an 800 number that you can call. Again, that's available on our website at carehouse.org. I'll share it here too. It is, I don't have it memorized, but it's 855-444-3911. And so you can report any suspected child abuse, whether you're a teacher or another parent or a neighbor that is concerned. Why do you think that people hesitate to call? Because I get that question a lot from people, well, if I suspect something, should I really report? Like, I don't want to, step on people's toes or break boundaries. What's your advice on that?
Well, as you know, teachers are mandated by law to report any suspicions they have regarding physical or sexual abuse. I don't think this is the time to be hesitant about reporting your concerns. You may be the only adult in contact with the child who can get them help. You should ask yourself how you'll feel if you find out later that child was being abused and you failed to report your suspicions. I can tell you that as an acting principal at my school for many years, the biggest thing that kept teachers from reporting was fear that the parents would know where the report came from. And I would always assure them that social services does not reveal that to parents.
And it's also, I think,
I'd like to be able to say that it never happens. Unfortunately, it sometimes did happen where the parents found out who reported it. But I think as a teacher, we owe that to our kids regardless.
Yeah. Well, and I think too that people are, you want to err on the side of caution when it comes to kids, and teachers have a really good gut instinct. I mean, they're dealing with lots of children, in different environments every day. And so being able to if you have that feeling that doesn't seem right, to be able to report really can be so helpful for a child. We know at Care House that 62% of kids will never disclose that they've been abused. That's a big number. That is a huge number. They'll live with that for their entire lives, and it will affect them. We know that trauma will affect them going forward into their adulthood. And so if we can, as educators, as caregivers, as parents, neighbors, friends, and family, if we can help in some way, it's so worth it. It's so worth it to take that small risk to be able to help a child.
Yes. I assume that reports still go to Child Protective Services. Is that what the number was that you referred to?
Yes. It does go directly. And in addition to doing it via phone, you can also submit the report online too. There's a form online, so that's makes it even easier too. And so you can find that at the Care House website as well.
Okay. Teachers, you need to keep in mind that normally in the school situation, teachers don't make the direct report themselves. They report to their administrator who calls it in. But
Mm-hmm.
the administrators aren't having the contact with the students during the quarantine. So that's going to have to have be a change in procedure.
Yeah. Yes. We had a report recently from a school principal, and the teacher had to report because they saw something on a Zoom meeting. It was a Zoom meeting or Google Meet, something on video that was very concerning to them, and so they were able to make a report, and Care House was able to do a forensic interview on that child. So the other question, to kind of changing course a little bit from mandated reporting, is that all of us as parents that have kids at home who are trying to balance our work life with being a teacher in some respects to our kids, it really increases that stress level. And so because it's such a tough time, I was wondering, how do you think that parents should approach um, you know, helping kids, and now with the warmer weather and kids getting more easily distracted, how do you think that parents, or what advice do you have for parents on helping their kids through this time, and giving them some kind of assistance and structure, so to speak?
Well, believe it or not, life, and I'm sure you've discovered this with your children being home. Children do crave routine.
Mm-hmm.
It makes them feel secure and comfortable in their environment. Uh, you have the perfect opportunity right now for continuing whatever pattern you established during the quarantine through the summer. This is different than how we would normally handle this, because
Mm-hmm.
kids are usually going to camp during the summer, going to visit relatives. That may not be happening this year. And we also have a situation where the children lost out on a great deal of instruction during the latter part of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So my personal opinion is that because school hasn't been in session for months, that parents would do well to keep the academic work going during the summer, perhaps not as much as often as they've been doing it, but I guess that depends on what their schedule was. I think it's especially important for children to continue with the reading on a daily basis, writing on a daily basis, and working on their math. Those are things that will see them through the other subjects if they have those skills.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to provide lots of playtime, though, and physical activity, because that's just as important. And don't forget that in school, kids are getting a lot of things other than the academics, such as art, music, drama. Don't hesitate to put those in. And the most important thing, I think, is that you need to involve your children in setting up that schedule, because the children are more likely to buy into what you're doing if they have a say in the plan. That's true of all of us, not just children.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say, don't make the mistake of making video games unlimited. There's a temptation to do that. And it's important for us to control that element, because you could tell kids that spend too much time on video games, they tend to get grouchy, fussy about things. It's not a good situation for children to just be receiving that input and not interacting.
Yes. I noticed especially for my younger son who's in third grade, that he's pretty independent in following what he needs to do for the day, that he wants to talk to me about it. Hey mom, I just read this great, article about how a bulb becomes a flower. Can I tell you about it? And it's easy, I know, as a parent for, to be involved in my work calls and checking my email, making sure that things are going smoothly at work. But I have to be able to take that break and say to them, yeah, I do want to listen to that, buddy. Tell me all about it.
That's fantastic, Blake, that you're doing that with them. It's so important. And as I advise my own nephew with his children, make sure that if you're having the children read, that you're reading what they're reading so that you can discuss it with them.
Mm-hmm. So you can ask them those questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because comprehension is just as important as being able to read it. That's for sure.
absolutely. In fact, the definition of reading really is comprehension,
Mhm.
not decoding words.
Right, right. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Um, I know that for me, what I noticed is, we did kind of develop a schedule, and I also give myself some grace with that schedule, so that if we tend to start our mornings a little later with school than they normally are used to. So, by 9:30, we get online and make sure we're starting our day, and in terms of the education. But, if it's 9:45, it's okay. It's not a big deal. And if we, need to take an extra break in there, and that means we don't get done until 4 o'clock instead of 3:30, that's okay too. So,
Yeah, and I hope you're teaching them to cook and take care of the house, how to do their laundry. This is the optimum time to be learning those skills that most of our kids are so busy during the school year, it's hard to find time to do with them.
yes, yes, I would agree. And yes, basic skills are really important. And, I think of, again, my son made new chicken noodle soup from scratch, and didn't really want to follow a recipe. He wanted to just kind of figure it out on his own. He did a great job. And I kind of think about that like it's kind of a science experiment, really. So
Exactly.
it was good. But it's not all roses and happy thoughts and happy family time. It can be really, really stressful. Do you have any advice for parents that may really be feeling the stress? Some days are better than others, but what did you do as a teacher when you were feeling stressed, or having a bad day? How did you kind of, recenter yourself? Because you can't just tell the kids to go to their room when you're at school.
No, that's true. It's probably easier to do it at home.
Yes.
But keep in mind, the teachers at school are not with kids 24/7. We have a designated school day that we know there's an ending. We know we have lunch coming up, and our lunches are duty free. We have that advantage the parents don't. And I think it's very difficult to maintain patience and understanding of children when there's no downtime for the adult. So I would say be sure to set up times daily when your child is separated from you. You both need this time to regenerate, especially if your child or you is an introvert,
Mm,
because that's essential to an introvert, to have time just to gather their thoughts and proceed on, whereas an extrovert tends to thrive on that interaction all the time. So know your child and yourself, and there's no reason they can't go into their room and have a designated half hour that they are to do something totally on their own.
mhm.
And you need that.
Okay. Good advice. Yes, I probably should do that once in a while, especially, again, for the introverts, right? In the house.
Right.
Um, I'm just looking at a couple other questions here. Um, I think that, one of the things that you mentioned about being on video games all day, and something like that really kind of sparked my concern. And I'm sure lots of people who, worry about children and care about kids are concerned that kids are spending so much time online, that school is online now, and you have to be connected to the internet in order to access most of the material. So, we talk about kids being online with video games and how that can affect them, but also being concerned about predators and online predators, and how we can protect our kids from that. So, one of the statistics that I know, as an advocate for children, is that 1 in 5 children will be approached online. by a predator. And so if you think about that, if you think about the ease of access that people have on the internet, for instance, we'll take Instagram as an easy one. You can be whoever you want to be on Instagram. You could be a 14-year-old boy just as easily as you could be a 30-year-old woman. You just find a picture and talk like you're 14, and someone will maybe friend you and immediately have that access to you. Do you have any advice for parents about how to make sure that kids are safe online when they are online and have that access?
I would say you probably are more knowledgeable about that than I am. My sons are both grown up, so I don't have to monitor what they're doing, but I do know that there are controls that parents can have. I think they should have them. I think they should always know what site kids are on. I would say the computer should be in a location, not their bedrooms, but a location where there are adults in and out all the time, so they realize it's not a good idea to try to be sneaky about it. It's just too easy to become a victim today, and unintended children, I would say, even if we had that in the classroom, could have been a problem. Although luckily the school computers block most sites that kids, but I will tell you, a few times when kids accidentally got on a site by mistyping what they were going to, and it took them to a very inappropriate site. And that's another good reason that the computer should always be in a public area of the house, because that can happen. It doesn't mean that your kid's being bad. It just happens. The predators know that if they make, for an example, one is the White House, and I know there is an inappropriate site that you will go to if you type just a little bit off on trying to get to that White House site.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think when the kids are going on to a site, somebody needs to be monitoring.
Yeah.
It's not easy, I know that, but it's got to be done.
No, it's not. So I'll share an example. My one of our board members was asked by someone, what would be your advice? He's a prosecutor, and so what would be your advice though to children and parents? Like, what do I tell my kids about online predators and being on the internet? And one of the things that he said that really struck home with me, I'm 46 now. And so when I was in school, the big thing was drunk driving, right? So if you were driving drunk, or you went to a party and you had drinks, your parents were supposed to say to you, you can call me Blythe and I will come get you. There will be no questions asked. I would rather do that than have you drive drunk or drive impaired. And so that was the message, right? During my generation in high school. And so now thinking fast forward to the internet is for parents to tell their kids, I understand that you're going to be on social media. I understand that you're going to have access to the internet that I'm not going to be able to see. But what I want you to know is that if something ever happens, if you ever get yourself into a situation where you've sent an inappropriate picture to somebody, thinking they were somebody else, or someone tries to reach out to you online and says, I'll hurt your family if you tell anyone what we've talked about or what's happened or a picture that you sent me, for them to know you can come to me and say, I got myself in this situation and I'm scared and I don't know what to do, and that I will be there to help you. I won't judge you. You won't be in trouble for doing something, but I'll be there to support and believe you with what happened and protect you. And for me, when I heard those words, I just thought to myself, yes, I can see that. I can see that with my own almost 13-year-old daughter, of her just doing something that she didn't realize was a bad decision, and then being so scared to tell me because she wouldn't want to disappoint me, that it really hit home for me. So I think
I
that
think
that's
that's
a
great
good
advice. And I would add one further thing that is
message.
was a problem even when I was still teaching, and I imagine it still is now, and that's cyberbullying.
Yeah.
Because the children would go home and no one would know what they were doing on the computer, and they would send very inappropriate messages to other kids, or make fun of a kid and then send it out to others. It was probably the biggest problem that I had as the teacher, that of something that occurred outside of school, because you end up with the child who is the victim being afraid to come to school.
Mm.
Um, they don't want to tell people what's happened because it's embarrassing. But it can really, as you've, I know you're aware of, like, that it can be as lead to as much as suicide with kids, and it's very, very serious. So again, keep the computer in a public area so that you do know what your child is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you can be, you can set parameters and say, I'm going to be your friend on Instagram or on Facebook, or I want to be able to talk to you about what you're doing on those social media sites. And that, the phone is really my property because I pay the bill. So if I want to
Exactly.
change that, I'm not about, I want you to have your privacy and I respect that, but I'm also concerned for you and want to make sure that you're safe. So being able to do that at any time with kids, open communication as much as you can, right? Little kids to
Right.
big kids. Yeah. And now's a great time because they're with you in the house all the time. So you can have those conversations pretty easily.
Right.
You're not too busy for it.
Yes, as hard as this situation is, it has offered many positive side effects as well. And to me, the biggest one is parents are spending more time with their children, which is something that we've gotten away from in recent years.
Definitely. Definitely. I think that just as a follow up, again, if you go to carehouse.org, we have a resources page that has information about, for instance, online safety, again, about reporting suspected abuse. We are doing a blog series called Strong Families that we have available right on our website, about things that you can do to, increase that communication and respect and time spent with your kids. And again, it's good for kids of all ages and caregivers that are stuck, quote unquote, at home right now. So, is there anything else that you wanted to add today, Pat? I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. I want to thank you and Care House Life for all that you do for children, because your job is such an important one. And I also want to say to parents out there, hang in there, this too shall end.
Yes, this too shall
We,
pass.
we've,
This too
all of us have been through, yeah,
and we won't ever
we've all
forget.
had times.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think back to 9/11, and it didn't last as long, but it was pretty traumatic at the time. So remember that these kids today have no idea about 9/11. They, the young kids, all they know about is what they hear you say.
Mm-hmm. It's very
So
true.
this is their 9/11 in a way.
Yes, it is. It is. Well, thanks again, Pat. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Blake. You take care. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye-bye.